All right, so we want to thank our hosts here and introduce our featured guest. You guys have probably seen Vermont Growers Association, maybe at the NECAN conference, maybe you've seen them on Instagram.
Yep, that's us.
And now you're going to finally get a chance to talk to one of the founders, not the only one. There are a lot of people marching behind this thing already, Jeff. But one of the founders, my friend, our featured guest, Mr. Geoffrey Pizzutillo. Welcome. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Eli. Appreciate it, Eli.
We do have a little, yeah, we got a few people in the live audience, so we might as well. Plus, I don't want people to take this too seriously. I mean, it is a serious topic, though, Jeff. The Growers Association is something that probably everybody's thought of and heard of, but
hopefully.
Before we talk about what that is, just maybe a little bit about yourself, because I know that a lot of people have had sort of transitions in how
sure.
active they are in the public cannabis community, but like we've known each other for a while. If you've been at the Bud Brunch parties, you've had a chance to meet Jeff. So like you're out there, but now you're really out here. So tell the fine folks, where if they haven't seen you at a show or here at Latch.
Yeah, thank you, Eli. Appreciate it. So we're in my offices for the Vermont Growers Association, which is our new state-level nonprofit, and Eli is gratefully a part of, and we'll expand on that more later. But myself, love Vermont. Been growing for not for too long. Try to do my thing. Yep, absolutely. No, but we're actually longtime advocates in this state. So when we first came up here, we were pretty involved back even before the Douglas administration in terms of helping to push some medical programs. And so we're caregivers ourselves. So you may have seen me on Instagram. I'm VMR Caregiver 17. Which is
yeah, very good. If you haven't seen them yet, I highly recommend go check it out because the Growers Association is about growers and Jeff's got the chops.
Well, I appreciate that. A lot of us do, and that's in part why we're doing what we're doing, is because we have a lot of talent in this state. And so coalition building is important. That's what we'll be talking about. That's what we're trying to do. Really make sure everyone's voice is heard, other than maybe some of the voices that have been, heard in Montpelier so far.
Preach, brother. I know. You saw the 2015 date on this thing. Jeff, we talk a little bit about kind of why this was started and the idea of like a growers association. Cool, sounds like a good idea. What's the actual structure? Because this is a real nonprofit.
Yep.
It's a real organization, and there are some actual political sort of goals and involvement with this, right?
There are. Great question. As of right now, we're functioning as a PAC. So we're a political action committee. We're a 501c4. We are a nonprofit. We're member-based. So as of right now, if you go to vermontgrowers.org, you can check us out, hop on our mailing list, stay connected. That's pretty much how we're going to be springboarding into events and actually reaching out to people. We will ultimately be also a trade association, but as of this moment in time, there's no industry. So, what are we doing as a PAC? We're basically going to be, writing legislation, right, advocating pretty hard in Montpelier until we in fact do have an industry. That's our overall structure as of this moment in time.
And I think really, kind of the organic nature of this, like you're somebody who's familiar with politics, who is engaged, and a lot of people who, quote unquote, you see people in City Market, you wouldn't know that this person's been growing cannabis and that they have some expertise in this, right? But
sure.
I think that was always part of the Heady Vermont vision, and I think that's part of what this movement is about, is that there are a lot of people with input, with interest. Some of them are medical patients or caregivers. Some are other entrepreneurs, who have been growing in their closet. I can't tell you the number of restaurateurs I've talked to who are dying to get into this, right? Absolutely. I mean, we know at least one.
Absolutely.
So this is like, we talk about a coalition, the idea of kind of bringing people in. Right now, let's talk a little bit about where we are, because we're still in the really beginning stages.
We are.
And our goals, and I'm using the we and the R because I am part of this organization. I'm very proud to be as a board member.
Board member, absolutely. And right now, senior advisor, without a doubt.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, we run. I like how flat our 3-person organization is.
We have a tight
right
ship.
now.
Yes.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about kind of what the platform is and like what the Growers Association wants to represent. Because I know if people go on vermontgrowers.org, or if people have seen some of our literature, there's kind of a 3-point sort of mission statement.
Sure.
But what's kind of the overall mission that we want to represent? Who are we trying to represent? And then let's talk about how people can get involved, themselves right now.
Absolutely. So, strong questions. I would say that as of this moment in time, our general mission, and we're not inventing the wheel here. We can look at lots of our sister organizations in other states. Basically, stepping back from a moment, we weren't seeing any sort of state level representation here, and that's one reason why we're getting into this, head first with you and others, and hopefully, you guys out there as well. And so our mission statement is basically we want Vermont's brand to be well represented when it comes to the cannabis industry. And we're specifically referring to not just the product end, but also the structure and at the economical end as well, in terms of how it's
right.
like the government structure is formed, and then how how it supports the values of Vermont, which is small business, mom and pop. We're very, I want to say, innovative when it comes to that territory. So let's make sure that cannabis is no exception. And that speaks to some of your other statements from a moment ago when you're referring to who would this appeal to. We have conversations with basically people who are still in the shadows, people who are hemp farmers, people who are out and about. This is a new thing for me. So it's very delicate right now, but we're trying to make sure that everyone's voice, no matter where they are and their own comfort level, is going to be ultimately represented.
Well, and I think that I struggled with this with even with with Heady Vermont and being a lobbyist in this last year too, because we were really promoting engagement. Right. We want to know what's going on, but there wasn't there wasn't like a patient group and a caregiver group, and we'll talk to minorities for medical marijuana, a little bit later, which we're gonna need a charger for, by the way, if one of you guys can throw me that from the bag. We didn't really have, now there's sort of some hemp coalitions that are forming up, just focused on that. But I really appreciate the opportunity with the Growers Association because we can kind of focus on a few things. And I think when we talk about it, it's small cultivators, and kind of the idea of craft cannabis, the idea that small is better, and that's more kind of in the Vermont sort of line. We talk about transparency, right? So that if Vermont quality is going to be at that top level, right over there on that tripod, Sean, that Vermont quality is going to be at that top level, people have to know that our standard is higher. Vermont organic farmers, they're doing certification for hemp processing right now. Clean Green does certification for cannabis. We want to set a standard that's even maybe more.
Absolutely.
Or at least give people a chance to shine and show their most. And I think that comes to sort of that third plank is accessibility. Like you said, how do I get involved? How much money do I need to have? $500,000? Sure. Do I need to have a lobbyist? Do I have to, we're kind of talking about the common man, the common person, the common, however you want to identify yourself, but really what are those points of what are those points of access?
You and I.
Yeah, exactly. So let's think a little bit more about sort of, people are going to be able to meet and talk with us more tomorrow at sort of the luncheon. But when you think about sort of some of the platforms, and we'll talk a little bit about the survey, what do you kind of see as some of the priorities? Because we've talked about S54. I know we'll probably talk more about that in the future, but what do you see being some of the priorities for us? It's over there.
Well, we want to make sure that, first of all, that inclusion is there. And you brought up pathways, so accessible pathways, inclusion, no sort of, industry preferential treatment. We're also referring to some other important matters are in-state ownership. We want to make sure our dollars are kept local. Go ahead.
And that's not to say that, not to say that in-state only
ownership,
but trying to preference
in-state,
and trying to funnel investment into the locals and, some anti-monopolistic things we can do, right?
Yes. No, we definitely, the VGA definitely welcomes out-of-state investment without a doubt. We just want to make sure that at the end of the day, the Vermonter also, is in the decision-making room, if not the owner.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
And with an emphasis on, as you mentioned, small-scale craft, which we know Vermont is really good at.
Well, so let's think about that. And this is one of our survey questions, which we'll talk about. Sean, it's over there in that bag. This is one of the actual survey questions, and we can put this up. And vermontgrowers.org/survey is the website. You'll be talking about this tomorrow. We'll be talking about this for months,
Yes.
probably. How big is that small cultivation license? Or how small is it, right? Because
Absolutely.
This is one of the questions. S54 right now says 500 square feet. Maybe $500, maybe $1,000, who knows? But
Right.
what do you see that size being?
Sure.
Do you think that square footage is the right thing to measure? Should we do plant counts? Should we do wattage? Kind of what's your take on it?
Absolutely. Well, there's my take, but there's also, I think, where we're at in this point in time, Eli, and you brought up the survey, is, as a political action committee, one of the things that we're really trying to do right now, while we draft legislation and get ready for the 2020 legislative session, is start listening. We need to start receiving feedback. So we're actually going to be asking all of you guys, not just our members currently on our mailing list, but hopefully as many of you in the state as possible, what do you guys hear? What's a priority for you in terms of, the importance of measuring by square footage, measuring by plant count, canopy size? Is it flowering and veg? Is it just flowering?
Right.
Are we talking about permits? Do we want to have event permits, which we think is really important? We're a tourist-driven state. We have the most beautiful festivals with beer. Why can't we have that with cannabis out of the gate?
Right,
So,
exactly.
things like that.
Exactly. Like you said, it's like there's what we think, but that only matters so much, right?
Exactly.
If we're going to have this coalition, and I think that's been part of what's been shitty about, watching and participating, in this advocacy and kind of seeing things be, you're either super broad and it's just everybody be engaged, or you're super specific, my dispensary needs to be at the front of the line and fuck the rest of it. So I feel like we've got a chance to kind of build a coalition, not a specific example. We've got a chance to kind of build a coalition here, but we do really want feedback, and it's a sincere thing because, and there are questions on the survey which we'll show people on here, and which, again, you'll be able to just see online. If you don't know about S54, you can get information. We'll be putting out some information.
Absolutely.
We'll be happy to talk about it. We'll be talking about it at lunch tomorrow, Vermont Cannabis Solutions.
Absolutely. Look forward to that.
Do you think that, you mentioned political action committee, right? So for those that are not familiar, a political action committee, we are going to be able to, in theory, actually support candidates.
Absolutely.
And donate money to candidates who believe and support our cause.
Absolutely.
This is kind of a philosophical
Absolutely.
juncture for us because it's like cannabis lobbying and advocacy becoming a real thing.
Yes.
How do we do this effectively without sort of, kind of either selling out,
Sure,
or being, kind of the big guys or sort of the bad guys, and how can we talk to candidates, and how should people watching talk to candidates to see if they're people that we're going to support or not?
Terrific questions. I would say, off the bat, and without speaking for you, Eli, or any of the other participants in the Vermont Growers Association at the moment, I don't really like having money in politics. So basically, this is, think almost like Bernie's Our Revolution. So this is the playing field before us. So if we want to be relevant, we need to use the tools before us. So as much as we have maybe disdain for some of the things that we're doing, so to speak, in terms of directly giving money to politicians, that's inevitably what we're going to be doing. So how do we, what are some of our parameters within our vision and our goals? Those would be, we're making sure we're taking money from Vermonters, from everyday people, and not being overly influenced by any sort of out-of-state, actors, if you will.
Yep.
As it's currently going on in this state. So that's one reason why it's really important for us to maintain that level of integrity. So it's really important for us to do coalition building with small contributions. We understand not everyone will be able to give the same. And basically that's where we're coming from. So, and also who we're going to be representing. So we're going to be representing the people who are giving us, you know what I mean, money, the voices who typically wouldn't be in the room.
Right.
So that's really what we're trying to do.
And I think that's part of the beauty of this is that we need to have some organization.
Absolutely.
We need to have an agenda, you know, we need to be a PAC, we need to have a presence in the State House.
Sure.
We need to have a survey. You know, we need to know who our stakeholders are.
Absolutely.
You know, and we need to have some members and we need to have some sponsors and like we need to have a message. Would probably maybe by advertising, like imagine like
messaging will be important. You know, one of the things that I'll say while we're talking about politicians and supporting them, we will have things for those of you guys to look forward to, things like election guides. So we know which candidates at the county level on up to support. We'll have a nice website moving forward in time for the next session and moving forward, hopefully. So we're not just going to be a one-time thing. We're here to kind of, you know, stay and maintain and sort of observe and evaluate legislations and making sure that things sort of are always reflective of Vermont's core values and small businesses. That's, you know, that's kind of our priority.
Yeah.
And you know, it's exciting. It's not going to be easy.
It is not.
It hasn't been easy so far.
We've been talking about. I know we've been talking about this for I feel like months and months. And you know, you've already been involved. You're involved last session, so you know, you guys are definitely not coming out of nowhere.
A lot of hope.
You know, but yeah, well,
a lot of energy out there.
A lot of faith.
Yes.
You know, and it's hopefully all channeling this energy in kind of a positive way, so that we're able to affect change. So we're going to be recruiting board members, advisory board members.
Yep.
We're going to be doing events and fundraisers. Just really getting started right now. The best way for you to get involved is to take this survey at vermontgrowers.org/survey. We'll drop it in the Facebook comments. And I think what I want to do, Jeff, is transition and talk about NECAN and show some of this video interview. And then let's check Facebook.
Terrific.
See some of our questions. And then let's come back, talk a little about that, and then we'll get out of here. And then we'll do my favorite segment to bring back, Smoke Your Weed.